I was talking with one of my colleagues, and he was like, "Yeah, once every 5 years, I take a year off to do something that I want to do." And I was like, honestly, like, I think if I was in a cartoon, like my brain would have actually exploded. I was just like, "You what?"
Welcome to the Quit Work podcast, 15-minute conversations with people who have quit their job and gone their own way. I'm Mark, and every week I talk to someone who has taken the bold step of quitting work to start living their true life. The idea is to inspire you to live your true life, whatever that might mean to you. Today I'm talking to Kristin from miniretirement movement, who quit her corporate job after 15 years to take a mini retirement, during which she and her husband got married in New Zealand. She's also encouraging others to take mini retirements through her Instagram. Again, that's at mini retirement movement. Kristin, welcome to the Quit Work podcast.
Thanks. So glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
Tell us about the job that you quit to take this mini retirement.
Yeah, sure. So I was working most recently in tech. I was at the same kind of big tech company for about 6 years, working in New York and then in London. And I was working in partnerships. And previously, I had been at a bunch of other big corporates before that for, like you said, about 15 years. So yeah, I was doing partnerships and working with other big companies, small companies to release big projects. So yeah, it was good. It was fun to be in London. Big tech's fun.
Kind of sounds like a lot of pressure. Strategic partnership sounds like a very high-powered job.
Yeah, yes and no. Working in big tech, it always impacts a lot of people because these companies touch a lot of people. So there's definitely not pressure, but I think I've always had the feeling in my career generally that I am not a doctor. I am not saving lives. Like, let's always keep things in perspective here. If a contract doesn't get done, like it'll all be okay. The world will continue to turn. So.
You told me that was one of your pet peeves about how seriously everybody takes corporate work.
Yeah, and I get it, right? It becomes like part of your identity, and you have your own personal and professional goals, and so all of what you're doing feels
Yeah.
like it like ladders up to like your life and matters so much, and then also like the people around you convince you that it all matters. And it's not to say it doesn't. Like, of course, there wouldn't be a job, and in theory you wouldn't be getting paid if you weren't providing some sort of value, but like I
Yeah.
think that it's good to keep some sort of perspective, depending on what job. And I think this COVID year maybe has enlightened a lot of people to that fact. When,
Yeah.
There's only so many people who are really core to keeping this world running. And unfortunately, a lot of us are not them. Fortunately or fortunately, maybe. Yeah.
How was it for you working in an office? Because I know you've travelled a lot. You say you've been to 56 countries and you've once volunteered at a lion sanctuary in Zambia, and you were working in an office job. What was it like being stuck inside all day?
Yeah, I don't like, I'm not a particularly outdoorsy or like adventurous person. At least I don't think of myself that
It
way.
doesn't sound like that.
I don't know. I grew up in New York City, and like,
Yeah.
you go to a good high school, you go to a good college, you get a corporate job. It's just like the thing to do. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't really ever think that there was a different option. I think just combined with like what we were just talking about, and how seriously we take some of these jobs, and then how much time we have to put into them, and then the commuting. And I really, especially even when I was younger, and just first out of school, I found myself like I had to make sure that I was doing one other thing per day that I enjoyed that was not work, or else I would start to feel like I was like just literally watching my life go by on a train. So whether it was like going for a nice dinner with friends, or going even a workout, whatever it was, like something to make me feel like I wasn't just working and then commuting and then going home. So I'm glad to have found some other outlets. And obviously travel was a big one for me. Like, I would take every PTO day I was given. I was worked for a bank one time, and they allowed you to buy 5 days, basically. It was like unpaid leave. And so many people would leave those days on the table. And I was just like, I'll take yours. Give them to me. Like, why would you not want to take this time? Like, we get paid decent money. You have the resources and the ability to like take time to do other things. Like, why would you not use it? That always blew my mind. I always took every single PTO day I was given.
So what was the thing that made you finally quit?
I moved to London. I had my job move me to London for a change of scenery. And I think being around people from different cultures and people that have had different paths was really helpful for me, because I think the community of people I was around in New York, like I said, they kind of followed this very specific path. And then I was on a business trip to Singapore, and I was talking with one of my colleagues, and he was like, yeah, once every 5 years, I take a year off to do something that I want to do. And I was like, honestly, like, I think if I was in a cartoon, like my brain would have actually exploded. I was just like, you what? And this was a very successful like sales leader at my big tech company that you would have thought, if you had just like if you had asked him about his life, he would have said, yeah, I've been working, went to top college, working nonstop, 80 hours a week for 10 years, and now I'm here. No, he like took a year to go train for some sports thing, and not to share his story, but blew my mind. So fast forward, I met my now husband. He is a Kiwi from New Zealand. And they too, and him and the Aussies, and like they all like have these stories where they went for a gap year and they backpacked around Europe, or he went and worked in Australia for 6 months. And I was just like, how come nobody explained these were options to me? Like, what? I felt a little gypped. And so when COVID happened and my husband, my partner, and I were getting more and more serious, we were kind of talking a lot about like, where are we going to end up moving? Where are we going to live? London was really far from both of our homes. And so we basically kind of said, well, would you live in New Zealand? Would you live in the States? And we were both like, well, we've never really spent a lot of time in those places. Like, how can you make a decision like that? So then, the conversation continued, and we said, well, let's go spend some time in each other's countries. But you can't, right? Like, how do you, even with COVID and working remotely, like I can't work virtually on a time zone from New Zealand to London or to New York. So I would have to quit. And
Yeah.
so I was like, well, I kind of ran it by him. I was like, what would you like, if I'm going to quit, I don't really want to quit my job for 3 months and then have to be stressed the whole time about getting a new job, because I'll be interviewing the whole time, basically. Then like, what's the point of taking 3 months off? So I said, what if we actually like did the thing? Like we quit and like took a mini retirement. And I mean, unbelievably, like the timing worked out for him and his career and our apartment, and I quit. Told my boss.
How did that process go? Did you tell your boss in person?
I was nervous for a few weeks as I was deciding about this. And then in the States, I don't know if you guys have this in Canada, but like in the States, there's this whole like weird time period where if you tell your boss, they can like basically walk you out right away, or they can tell you to stop working. And I wasn't ready because I wanted to make sure I got my bonus. And so I was like really nervous about this whole timing situation. But it was eating me up because I actually did really like my boss and I got along with him, and I didn't want to cause like a rift. So but yeah, eventually, basically, I kind of decided on a time period that I felt comfortable that, if I had to leave immediately, it was fine. Or if I had to like wait out my days, that was fine too. And I told him on Zoom. I mean, I think it helped that like I wasn't going to a competitor or something like that, which is, it is what it is. I kind of was just like, it's not you, it's me. And I'm going to live some life.
And how did that feel? Once you got past that point of actually telling your boss, how did it feel? Did it feel freeing, or did it feel like, what have I done?
Yeah, both, obviously, like of course it feels both, all the emotions. And yeah, it definitely like it feels a little bit of like, who am I once I don't have this title? Like, what do I put on my LinkedIn? Who am I? Like, what do I tell people in New York? Like you say, hi, I'm Kristin and I work at X and I do Y. Like that's your first line. Who are you if you don't have a job? So it was a bit, yeah, scary. And also like in big tech, we're treated quite well. You feel like you always have somebody in your corner, like somebody paid my phone bill, and they like if I ever got in trouble abroad, like there was somebody I could call, and I was like, I'm going and doing this, and like I'm not gonna have healthcare, and I'm not gonna have somebody that like can help me with the visa if I have a problem. And that was a bit nerve-wracking. But on the good side, of course, is like, can I curse? Fuck, like, this is this is huge. Like this was the scariest and biggest and most exhilarating thing I'd ever done. And I felt like a pioneer of my own life. It was like wild.
Oh, that is awesome. So tell us about mini retirement. Tell us about your mini retirement, and tell us about how you're putting the word out to other people.
This is like a perfect idea, right? It's like a gap year for adults. I was already into this like fire early retirement concept. So I was like, this is just like a new vibe of that. So mini retirement, certain amount of time to take off to do other things and then go back to work later. And so my mini retirement's been like honestly beyond my expectations. Like I said, I got married. My husband and I did get married in New Zealand, which was super awesome. We COVID wedding, basically just the two of us, but that was great. We have been able to travel a little bit after we got our vaccines. We felt more comfortable kind of traveling around a little bit. And so we've gotten to spend a bunch of time in New Zealand, Australia, Egypt, Turkey, Morocco, Spain. It's been awesome.
Oh, fantastic.
And I think one of my favorite things is like I've never really considered myself a particularly creative person. I think whether that's my own doing or a little bit of like just the fact that I've always been on this like kind of career track and done all the things that I was supposed to do instead of maybe the things that I found like particularly interesting. I have used this year to really, like, I don't know, try to flex that muscle that I wasn't sure if I even had. And so the mini retirement movement kind of project on Instagram is sort of my, a little bit of my outlet of that. Plus, hopefully helping other people have their mind blown. So I'm like learning Canva and making posts and doing research about retirements and the history of retirement and what's fire versus mini retirement versus early retirement. Just having a really good time finding other people that are on mini retirements or people that are planning or have done them and allowing them to share their stories so that people see like it's not just maybe them that have wanted to take a break from their job. It's not like 100% normal, I think, for humans to have such this rigid working life. And I think we all have these moments of like, oh, is this what it is?
Yeah.
And so I think, projects like yours and projects like Mini Retirement Movement, it's good to just show people other options. It's been so fun.
It sounds like it's kind of changed how you thought about your life to some extent.
I mean, totally. Yeah, I think totally. I realized that there is not just one path. I think, I started dabbling in a little bit of real estate investing a couple of years ago, and I think that was like my first inkling of that. But now kind of seeing all of these people who make all different ways of making things work, whether it's through a bunch of side hustles, whether it's through real estate, whether it's through working for themselves and working full time, and then taking periods of time off. Like there's so many paths, and it's just about finding what works for you. And I'm like starting to, well, it'll be interesting to see what this all ends up meaning because I'm like still in the middle of my like real official time off. And my husband's starting to be like, are you going to go back to work? And I have to start to think about what that looks like. So it's like still in progress, about what all of this kind of means for me, the awakening.
Oh, I look forward to following how that evolves. What would you say to other people who aren't happy with their work but don't know what to do about it?
I honestly like the internet is such a lovely resource. I mean, there's good and bad, obviously, but you can find groups of people that have all the same questions, all the same interests as you, and like it's so helpful to get yourself out of your own maybe small community that you're, your IRL community, and just see what else, like what other people are doing and what else is out there. And maybe people will inspire you. Maybe they'll help you find ways to enjoy your job, your current job or career more. Maybe they'll, help you find ways to balance your work and your home life better, or your life, as I would more say it, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll, encourage you to take some time off, like on a mini retirement or a sabbatical, or maybe quit altogether and like take a leap into something else, a different project, a different career, a different life. I don't know. I just recommend, I think online has a vast array of people living all sorts of lives, and it can be very helpful to feel less alone.
That's awesome. So listeners, if you'd like to connect with Kristin, you can follow her on Instagram at miniretirement. Kristin, thanks so much for joining me on the Quit Work podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Quit Work podcast. I love talking to people who have taken the bold step of quitting their job to start living their true life. Join me for a fresh conversation every week. Subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel at quitworkproject.com. And if you have any comments on this episode, or if you'd like to tell your own Quit Work story, I'd love to hear from you. Contact me at quitworkproject.com or on Twitter or Instagram at quitworkproject. I hope you too find your way to quitting work and living your true life.